This is the debate that won't end. For the last few days, people have been going back and forth. They're embroiled. This thing is raging over President Trump's recent decision to conduct airstrikes in Syria. There has been a tectonic shift in political fault lines around the world, both here at home in the United States and in response to the strikes around the world. Suddenly, John McCain is praising Trump. The media is giving him glowing headlines. Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders agree with him. Even Angela Merkel cast some praise his way. What gives, all right? Well, let me break it down for you because there's a lot of players in this and the entire game, it's just shifted. So essentially, there's two schools of thought on the matter. I'll break it down. But the first real question to be asking here, I think, is what is Trump's Syria strategy? As far as the debate goes, the two sides of the Trump supporters are very much divided. I'm going to call one side Trust Trump, and the other side America First. Team Trust Trump's argument is basically this. We elected Donald Trump to be our president and gave him our trust in matters of national security and foreign policy. His decision to attack Syria and these strikes should be supported in the same way because Trump may be playing off a larger strategy that we don't yet see, okay? This side also claims that if you disagree with Trump, you're off the Trump train and you're a traitor. You have lost sight of the bigger picture of everything the Trump presidency is about. The America First side, on the other hand, takes the view that any relationship is bound to undergo some periods of healthy criticism, and that saying you disagree with a singular decision made by President Trump doesn't equate with jumping off the Trump train, but you're just making your personal disagreements known on policy issues. Now, many people on this side are very worried that these actions in Syria will lead to escalation of the U.S. presence in the Middle East and potentially direct conflict with Russia, sparking World War III. Trump himself laid this argument out many times on the campaign trail and even tweeted it out once as president. So what are the different options on the table? And it seems right now that Trump is kind of A/B testing these options. He's got different members of his administration out there giving different statements to the public and seeming to conflict with one another, right? Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, he's talking about regime change. He's mentioned it a few times. Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador, is talking about just doing more. Sean Spicer said today simply that the U.S. would conduct more strikes if they believe they're warranted. So it almost seems like Trump is, as he usually does, testing the waters before making a big decision, okay? Now let me lay out the possible scenarios that are being discussed in Washington. First, one option may simply be the scenario that's actually argued by the team Trust Trump I mentioned before. They state Trump is mostly staying out of Syria other than to fight ISIS in the east and to push back against the Assad versus the jihadist rebels fight if he sees it getting too dirty or more use of chemical weapons from either side. The option is all about sending messages to the rebels, to Assad, to Putin, to Kim Jong-un, China, the rest of the world, and it's certainly got their attention. Even Hillary Clinton and John McCain were in favor of Trump's strike, just to give you an indication of where people are on this. The second option, as reported by Cernovich Media, it's actually championed by many academic schools, many generals, is a major U.S.-led invasion force into Syria to establish safe zones and to stabilize the region. This would call for about 150,000 U.S. troops, and it's reportedly the option favored by H.R. McMaster, the Petraeus ally, who's now Trump's national security advisor following the firing of Michael Flynn. Now this option, it's going to be politically unpopular with many Americans and lots of people because they would see it as a second Iraq war. Trump himself campaigned strongly on his disapproval of the Iraq war in 2002. Now, the third option is one that I broke recently, that Trump is also considering a Sunni and Kurd-led coalition force of troops for Syria led by Jordan. Supposedly, he discussed this option with King Abdullah II of Jordan during their recent visit at the White House and also with al-Sisi, the Prime Minister of Egypt. So in this scenario, a coalition of Sunni Arab conventional forces would enter Syria with the U.S. as air support and special ops to establish safe zones and pave the way for a political solution with Assad and Russia. Now, this option would likely be supported by Secretary of Defense Mattis, who spoke negatively about a U.S.-led force in Syria in the past. Mattis himself led forces in the first Iraq War. Final piece I'd like to discuss is an analysis of my own on the topic of Russia and the US coming into direct conflict. That's clearly the most dangerous course of action in any Syria scenario. Given that, doesn't it make sense that Trump and Putin would realize that too? They didn't exactly become the leaders of the world's two superpowers by being idiots. My guess is that for whatever public statements the two may be making, they do have some form of back-channel communications, either for the military or between the two presidents themselves, just to keep their powder dry and cut through all the crap of the media and just talk to one another about what's going on. World peace is at stake, and in that case, I really doubt either of them want to screw around with that. Again, we are not talking about idiots. Does anything point to this? When the cruise missiles struck last week, a lot of people were asking, gee, how come the Russians didn't try to shoot them down? They've got perfectly good air defense systems in place. They easily could have gotten at least a few Tomahawks. They could have tried. Spoiler alert, Russian air defense is designed to go against Tomahawks. End spoilers. So what's really going on? Well, in politics, you can always tell that when something big goes down and suddenly people are acting differently, it means a deal's been made somewhere. Is that the case between Syria with Putin and the USA? Would Putin trade Assad for the promise of keeping Russia's strategic air and naval bases in Syria? Only time will tell. I'm just a man asking questions. Jack Posobiec, Washington Bureau Chief, Rebel Media. If you want more updates on the situation around the world and analysis of what's going to be in the headlines next week, keep it parked right here, like and subscribe to The Rebel.